This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. Hello everyone, Andy Pickering here. Welcome to the holiday edition of the Crypto Conversation. We're republishing some of the best episodes of 2021. This one is back from May. It's my conversation with Bobby Lee. Bobby, of course, is the founder of Ballet Crypto. Bobby has been around really kind of since the early days of Bitcoin. And he published a book this year called The Promise of Bitcoin, The Future of Money and How It Can Work for You. And, the book is always, has Bobby's reflections on the history of Bitcoin and, of course, how Bobby sees Bitcoin just becoming a more and more important and integral part of the global financial system. So, yeah, lots to enjoy here. Bobby's a fascinating and entertaining guy as well. So I hope you enjoy this. Before we get into it, let's just learn about our wonderful sponsor, Prime XBT, and then we'll get into the chat with Bobby. Prime XBT, of course, is an award-winning Bitcoin-based trading platform with over 50 assets, including crypto, forex, commodities, and indices. And to provide the highest level of liquidity, Prime XBT aggregates feeds from 12 industry-leading exchanges and data providers. Prime XBT offers high leverage, going up to 100x on crypto assets and as high as 1000x for the traditional markets, with an interface that is suitable for both professional and beginner traders. Prime XBT is also home to a co-vesting platform which allows users to apply the copy trading strategies of the most successful professional traders. All right. Just check them out today at primexbt.com. There'll be a link in the show notes, of course. But for now, it is on with the show. Yeah, boy! My guest today is Bobby Lee. Bobby is the founder and CEO of Ballet Crypto. Bobby is the co-founder of the longest running crypto exchange in China, BTCChina. And Bobby is the author of a new book. And the book is called The Promise of Bitcoin, The Future of Money and How It Can Work for You. Hey, welcome to the show, Bobby.
Yes, thank you, Andy. Very happy to be on this show, Brave New Coin.
It's a pleasure to have you, Bobby. And so, look, you're really well known as, one of the kind of early Bitcoin investors and entrepreneurs. But I think, you kind of do have a technological computer science background, and you've been into computers, I guess, since you were really young. I was fascinated to hear your story, which you tell in the book, about being a Microsoft intern back in the 90s and going to Bill Gates's house. But so we're going to talk about the book today. But just to begin with, I'd love you to kind of introduce yourself and talk about your sort of early days getting into computers as a young guy.
Yeah, so I have an engineering sort of computer science background. I studied computer science at Stanford, and even before going to college, I had a strong interest in math and sciences, and this is pretty much true in my whole family. As my father went to MIT, he encouraged a very sort of engineering upbringing. So we studied a lot of engineering courses, math courses, science courses, and then eventually that landed me at Stanford. And of course, being in Silicon Valley, computer science, I've been interested in computers from a very young age. Again, through, our family, we're fortunate to have purchased a personal computer back in the 1980s. So I've been working with computers, programming them and playing with them, since in the mid 80s. And so after Stanford, I went to Yahoo. So this is an internet company, of course, which later got acquired by many different companies. And I also interned at Microsoft and IBM back during the college days. And then I moved to China about in 2007. So over the last 15 years, I've mostly been based in China, in Shanghai. And that's where I first discovered Bitcoin during one of my conversations with my brother, exactly 10 years ago in early spring of 2011. So this is great. This is not only I'm launching my book on May 18th, but this is also the 10-year anniversary for me and Bitcoin. So it's a milestone.
Yes, it is. Okay, well, let's start to talk about your book, Bobby. So I have read this book. I read it. I read quickly through it a couple of days ago, and look, I really did enjoy it. So listeners, I think the book comes out in about 2 weeks, and I'll put a link in the show notes to your website, Bobby, where you can pre-order the book. But I'm sure it'll be available on Amazon and wherever people get books. But yeah, so as I say, I really enjoyed it. But let's. I'd love you to just kind of, what's the background to this book, Bobby? Why did you decide to write a book about Bitcoin?
Yes, in life I've always thought maybe one day I'll write a book. So one of my sort of goals in the early age, and now that, and since I got into Bitcoin pretty early, after I sold my company BTCC in 2018, that's when I really got this book project started. And it takes longer, takes more work than I ever could have thought. But thankfully, last year during the COVID, I finally got the time to finish up all the chapters. And my publisher is McGraw-Hill. So I signed a contract with them a few years ago and got that all done. So very excited. So essentially, the reason I'm writing this book is I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. I very much enjoyed investing in Bitcoin and learning about it. Bitcoin has taught me a lot about economics, taught me a lot about society. And I'm still learning about Bitcoin every year, even these days. I'm starting learning more and more aspects of Bitcoin. Not necessarily technology. The technology hasn't changed, but more the economic and social impact and what it means in our society of centralized monetary system, centralized financial institutions. What does Bitcoin mean? What does it really mean for there to be a decentralized digital cryptocurrency? So even though I knew from day one that Bitcoin was decentralized, I really didn't appreciate the true nature of decentralized digital currency back 10 years ago, not even 8 years ago or 5 years ago. So I have a much stronger appreciation of it today. And I expect this to continue. So even though I'm already at my 10-year mark, over the next 5 years, I fully expect to continue to learn more aspects about Bitcoin myself. So it's a continued path of journey of learning. And the reason to write this book is to really share my knowledge to the common people, to the everyday person. So this is not, even though I have a tech background, this is not technical. There's no equations, there's no mathematical formulas or computer science or cryptography. It's really simple. It's really meant to explain to the everyday person why Bitcoin is such an amazing investment. It's an investment opportunity of a lifetime. It really is the future of money in the broad sense. And I hope that everyone on this planet has a chance to sort of partake in this world of cryptocurrency by investing in Bitcoin. So that's the reason why I wrote the book.
Fantastic, and you're quite right, Bobby. So the book is not, don't be scared of this being a kind of a technical book on Bitcoin. That's not what it is at all. It's actually it's a fascinating book, Bobby, because you really talk about, you go deep into your background and your family's background, and the relationship you have with your brother Charlie Lee, and then of course you go into Bitcoin, and there's a little bit about the history and philosophy of money, and then you sort of look to the future. But since it really is about Bitcoin, I'd love to just hear your sort of your 1 minute version. What do you say to someone that you meet that is not down the Bitcoin rabbit hole? What is Bitcoin when you talk to those people?
Yeah, I tell them, Bitcoin is a new asset class. Traditional asset classes like real estate, stocks, money, and also, precious metals and stuff like that. And Bitcoin is a totally new asset class that's born on the internet. So it's a digital asset class that is tangible, but it's only in digital format. So given our society, we've embraced the internet. It's about time that we have something like Bitcoin as a true store of value of money that's digital form where people can pay each other So that's what Bitcoin is, and because it's a new asset class, it started at value of zero, and I think it's going to rival the world's biggest asset classes like real estate, like precious metals, and also stocks and bonds. So each of those asset classes are in the hundreds of trillions of dollars in market value. So Bitcoin today is only at $1 trillion. If it ever gets to 100 trillion or more, it's a huge potential increase in investment, and this is why people should pay attention now before it becomes that huge 100 trillion asset class. Right now, it's only 1 trillion asset class, and it's never too late to dip your foot in, dip your toes in, and start investing and holding some Bitcoin.
Exactly right. And look, I'd love to just pick up on something you said earlier, Bobby. So you said that you're a Bitcoin maximalist, right? And there's this quite interesting, I don't know if interesting is the right word, but there's a lot of tension at the moment between, I guess, people that would fall in, the Bitcoin maximalist camp versus, Ethereum, and then, all the altcoins. And just today, I thought it was interesting. You see that the Bitcoin price is dropping, and historically, whenever Bitcoin would dip like it's dipping at the moment, you'd usually see all the altcoins dip as well. But, Doge is, of all things, is just, going crazy at the moment, I guess, as all these new young retail investors come in and jump on it. But it feels like there's a little bit of a shift happening. So I'd love to just hear your thoughts on what you think is happening there and why you think Bitcoin maximalism is still kind of the right path.
Well, so each person can have their views. I don't think there's necessarily wrong perspective. What I mean by Bitcoin maximalist is, of all the cryptocurrencies out there, I'm still the strongest believer in Bitcoin. I still have that strongest belief. I myself actually do hold some Litecoin and Ethereum. However, I don't dabble much in any of the other altcoins. And the reason is I think the focus should be Bitcoin. I think that's where the value is. I think human society has proven that the 80-20 rule, right, where there's, regarding different competing technologies, eventually society coalesces around one core technology, one core standard. It happens in human communication, like language. The reason we're speaking English is not because we are necessarily born in an English-speaking country, but because, for reasons good or bad, the world has moved to where English is sort of the de facto cross-country international language. And we see that in things we use, like the computer keyboard, right? It's famously called the QWERTY keyboard, where the top few letters are QWERTY. It's not the best layout. It's not the most efficient, but it is a standard. It is, I think our children and grandchildren will grow up, if they ever do continue to have keyboards, whether it's a physical keyboard, electronic keyboard, digital keypad on a phone, it'll still have the same layout, the QWERTY layout, and that's just because of human standard. So for these reasons, I think Bitcoin is going to be that. It has already been the standard for the last 12 plus years. It's been in existence and will continue to be so. But again, there's a lot of room for crypto. That's why you have all the other coins recently. Like you mentioned, Dogecoin has been very popular. There's been other coins, including Binance Coin and others. And there's up-and-coming ones like Chia. Hopefully get some traction there as well. I'm a small investor in that company. But regardless, like I said, digital currencies are here to stay, especially truly decentralized digital currencies. There's no way to turn it off. There's no way to shut them down. Governments may not like it at first, but the reality is they can't do anything to sort of stomp it out. So yeah. Bitcoin, that's why.
Okay, look, that makes sense, Bobby. Well, look, we're sort of, I guess we're how many years into Bitcoin are we now? 12 or 14, depending on when you start the clock. But from I guess the release of the white paper, you yourself have been in Bitcoin for I guess 10 or 11
years.
10 years.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, let's say 10 years into the Bitcoin journey for you, Satoshi is long gone. Obviously, Bitcoin has to be considered a success by any metric. But what are your thoughts on has it taken faster or longer to get to where we are today from where we were in, say, 2011?
I think it's right on pace. Even 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, I never. First of all, on the one hand, I expected Bitcoin to get to $1 trillion in market value. That's in my expectation. I think it'll get to 10 trillion and eventually get to 100 trillion. Okay. Now, it's taken 12 years, and I say, that to some people, wow, it's taken so long, it still hasn't reached mass adoption. But I'm not worried, because every fundamental technology breakthrough in humanity, whether it's electricity, whether light bulb, whether it's the car or the airplane, or even the internet, right? Look at those inventions and look at where things were 12 years after they were invented. And frankly, it's not global adoption, right? I don't care if it's airplanes or cars or electricity or the internet. Even the internet, we today we could say the internet has succeeded. But 12 years into the invention, this would be in the 1980s. Surely the internet has not gotten a lot of attention back then. So I think Bitcoin is just on par with these other great human achievements. And remember, if you measure it in human years, 12 years, you're still a child. You're still in grade school, right? You're not even a teenager yet. You're not even in high school yet, right? You're barely finishing elementary school and you're about to go into junior high. So by the time Bitcoin turns 18 as an adult, or turns 21, the drinking age in the US, I think Bitcoin will be a formidable asset class. That's why I want to write this book and put this in writing that, hey, this is the time for everyone to invest. People always ask me, people always complain to me, why didn't you tell me about this earlier? Why didn't you tell me about this earlier? And every person I meet, I come across with, I tell them, go invest in Bitcoin, go invest in Bitcoin. I've been doing that for the last 10 years. And this time, I'm very fortunate to have the opportunity to write a book and put it in book form. I think this will reach many more people compared to just seeing people in person or seeing people at crypto conferences. So I hope to get the book out to the mass audience and let more people be aware of this upcoming revolution.
Yes, indeed. And also you talked about how, people come up to you and they say, Bobby, why didn't you tell me to invest a long time ago? And I think it's always hard to know what to say to people, right? Because it's hard to give people advice sometimes, right? But you actually have some really good advice in your book, and you're quite straight up about this. So you're kind of focusing it on, let's say people, as you say, people that think they've missed the boat on Bitcoin. And there's a couple of points you make in the book. You say that one mistake is that people suffer from the indecision to buy, and then they don't buy enough, and then they sell too early. And so I'd love you just put that in context. So if I know this is just very much general advice, but what is your advice to people who think they look at Bitcoin now and they think they've missed the boat?
Well, one thing is they think they missed the boat because they look at the past price chart, the historical price charts of Bitcoin, and it's very scary because anytime you look, it pretty much has gone up exponentially in the last year or two. So by looking at the past, you really focus on something that you cannot change, that you can't. It's like water under the bridge. So what you really should focus on, if you want to consider Bitcoin as an investment asset, is look at the future. What is the potential? Like, can Bitcoin right now? The value. Don't look at the price in US dollars, because the price of one Bitcoin, because it's arbitrary. Why is it just one Bitcoin? Why not 1,000 Bitcoin? Why not 0.001 Bitcoin? So the way to look at it is to look at the overall aggregate value, which is $1 trillion roughly. Today, all of Bitcoin is worth 1 trillion. And you say, is it a good investment? Well, look at other companies. Companies like Apple, Google have reached over $1 trillion. I forgot if it's 2 or 3. They're clearly multi-trillion-dollar companies now. And Bitcoin is the size of one of those companies, if you will. And the question is, but then you have other things like global asset classes like real estate, which is over 200 trillion globally. Stock market as a whole is over 200 trillion, let's say. So where will Bitcoin be in the future? And I think once the dust settles, once Bitcoin, let's say, turns 18 years old, turns 21 years old, when it's real mature adult in society, the internet will be around. Do you believe the internet will be around? I do. And do you believe Bitcoin will be around when in another 8-10 years? I'll say yes, I do. So for that reason, Bitcoin should not just merely stay at $1 trillion. It should maybe go to 10 trillion or 100 trillion. And for that means you're getting a 1,000% or even a 10,000% return on your investment today. So it really doesn't matter if Bitcoin corrects, 10% or 20%, or even if it goes up 10% or 20%. You buy in now and hold it for 10 years. That's my advice. And I follow my own advice, by the way. I've been holding my Bitcoin for the last 10 years. I have sold some for small profits, but I'm holding the majority on for another 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I don't want to dwell on these kind of numbers or predictions too much, Bobby, but they're fun, so we have to a little bit. But so
yes.
I think the last thing you say at the end of that section is, I think you say something like, people that come into Bitcoin, they should only wait to sell their first coins after 100x gain, and they should also hold some for 1,000x gain. Now, I can understand that makes sense from the perspective of, say, 2011, 2012, but do you really see a Bitcoin appreciating on that kind of scale from where we are today?
So I think in the book I said that basically at the least, you should hold out for 5x gain, 5 times.
Right.
So whatever price you buy it at, you should wait at least until it goes up 5 times, because Bitcoin is just that kind of investment. In other words, it's not like a regular stock purchase where you'd be happy with 20% return. For Bitcoin, you should minimum get, I think, 500% return, which is 5x. And when it does achieve the 5x return, definitely do not sell all of your Bitcoin position. What I advise in the book is sell 25%. Sell a quarter of it, and then keep the remaining 75% for further appreciation. And the next level I would say is wait for like a 20x gain. And then that again, sell 25% if you get to a 20x gain. And then the third level is to wait for a 100x gain. And for that, you can sell another 25%. And for the last 25% that's remaining, you should aim for much higher than the 100x gain. And maybe we don't know if it's going to get to 1,000x return from today, but certainly by then you could pass on your Bitcoins to your descendants, to your children, to your grandchildren. So, I think it's a great way to pass wealth down the generations.
Absolutely. And I think most people are aware now that Bitcoin does seem to be evolving into that kind of just, pure, pristine collateral. And it's not, you'd never really want to sell all of your position, because you're exactly right, Bobby. If Bitcoin does become, as I say, this number one pristine asset, then it'll be an incredibly valuable asset to pass down through the generations.
Yeah.
But so, and in the book, Bobby, you also say that a kind of understanding and projecting the value of Bitcoin is a daunting prospect. And that's simply because no one can predict the future. And while the path forward is never a straight line, so far Bitcoin has continued to grow in interest and appreciate in value. And you make this argument repeatedly in the book. And so I think the point is, you say that, Bitcoin is still working out its kinks, and now it's attracted the attention of governments. So we're going to see, regulatory attention. And you also even say that secretly you think governments and corporations want Bitcoin, but they're still a little bit afraid to admit it. Do you really think that's true?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the companies first.
Sure.
So when I started writing this book in 2018-19, I was already predicting that companies will start investing in Bitcoin. And of course, the big news this year, 2021 in January, was when Tesla announced that they have purchased $1.5 billion in Bitcoin. And that was a huge shock to the industry, to the huge, it was great news for the industry, but it was a huge shock to the traditional finance industry, where they're like, what? How crazy is that? Right. And this is something I predicted. I didn't exactly predict Tesla would do it, but I predicted large companies would do it. And in my book, I have a section about predicting that, companies like Apple or even Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway, one day they will get into Bitcoin, whether it's Microsoft, Intel, one of the large companies. And of course, Tesla has done that. So that's amazing. And I think more and more companies, especially public listed companies, today, many companies have cash reserves and they're sitting in the bank. And it's liquid, but it's giving a terrible return, right? There's no return on it. so it's not working for the company. Whereas Bitcoin, you can invest in Bitcoin and you can hedge against inflation and all that stuff. It is very volatile, so the companies who invest have to sort of take that volatility risk. But overall, I think it's a well risk adjusted. And then, of course, I'll also talk about countries. So sovereign nations, governments. I believe that this, by the way, we're in the 2021 bull market cycle. And inevitably, we're going to get into bear market in a few years. But the next bull market will come in about 3 or 4 years. And when that comes, I think it will be powered by sovereign nations getting into Bitcoin. And that's what's going to push Bitcoin past $1 million. We're talking about countries, small and large, developing countries, first world countries. They're going to start owning Bitcoin on their balance sheets. And some countries, I think, secretly may be already doing that, but certainly no countries has declared it yet. So this will be a very exciting space to watch in the next few years.
Certainly will. Well, look, and in terms of Bitcoin's growth, we're sort of, I guess, we understand Bitcoin now in these kind of 4-year halving cycles and the bull and bear markets. But beyond that, there's several different frameworks that people have used to try and map out a Bitcoin's path forward, right? So obviously there's, the very famous stock to flow model. Some people just talk about exponential network effects, or some people talk about Metcalfe's law, which is another way of explaining networks. Or some people just say it's a greater fool theory, or it's a Ponzi scheme, right? So, do you have a kind of a framework yourself for how you sort of account for Bitcoin's slow or fast, even just increasing adoption and increase in value?
Yeah, the model I've been using since 2013 is modeled after the contraction in the expansion of Bitcoin, which is I think that sounded essentially the reduction of the block reward. Okay, so that it's called the block halving. It happens every 4 years, and this model more recently has been known as a stock to flow model. Okay, so I've been talking about this even without referring to it as stock to flow model since December of 2013, and essentially, Bitcoin is unique as an asset class because it's the world's only asset class that has a finite limit. Okay, so even gold doesn't have a finite limit. You could keep digging deeper and deeper, and there's more gold out in the universe. So there's no known finite limit for gold. But and again, there's no limit for stocks or for real estate. For Bitcoin, there is a known limit, which is 21 million units, and that's a tremendous invention. The number actually doesn't matter. What matters is the fact that there is a number. So even if Satoshi Nakamoto set it at 32 million or 42 million, it didn't matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is it was set as a hard concrete number. In this case, the Bitcoin is for 21 million units. So well, how does the 21 million unit come out, right? How does it go into existence? Well, it's through this effort called mining. And what happens is Satoshi in the program, it set a scale. It says basically we release half of all the Bitcoins every 4 years. So the first 4 years you got half of it, and the next 4 years you get half of that, which is a quarter. And the subsequent 4 years you get a half of that, which is 1/8. And now we're in the cycle of 1/16. So over the current 4 years, we're getting another 1/16 of the supply of Bitcoin, and it's going to keep going down in half every 4 years, and it's going to take another 120 years before we run out and reach the so-called maximum of 21 million. So there's a long time away. It's very exciting, and with each crunch, the mining gets more difficult, and I think there's artificial sort of pressure for the price to go up to both accommodate the mining costs and also to accommodate the liquidity that people need to move money around Bitcoin. In other words, today Bitcoin is $1 trillion. That means people can send millions of dollars or even billions of dollars like Tesla buying at $1.5 billion because Bitcoin can accommodate that amount. But because Bitcoin today is only worth 1 trillion, countries cannot pour in 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 trillion worth of their money to buy Bitcoin because Bitcoin itself is only 1 trillion. So how can a country one day pour in, let's say, $10 trillion or even $2 trillion to buy Bitcoin. Well, the way to do that, to have that liquidity, is for Bitcoin price to go up even more. So that's why it's very safe to say that Bitcoin price will go up another 10x, another 20x, another 100x, because countries want to go in with 10 or more trillions of dollars. And the way to do that is for Bitcoin to be priced at 100 or 200 trillion dollars. That's why I think.
Wow. Absolutely fascinating, Bobby. And look, I mean, talking of countries or let's say, nation states, as this thesis starts to play out. So I think you said maybe in the next bull cycle is when nation states will start to enter. And, that's one of the most fascinating things about Bitcoin, right? Because as it gets bigger and more valuable, it becomes increasingly geostrategically important. And I think you'll have a good perspective on this because obviously, you kind of have this mixed background of, Chinese and the US. But so let's say we've got China on one hand, the US on another hand. We've seen states like Iran, right, are taking an interest in Bitcoin mining. Any thoughts on how you see this kind of geopolitical tug of war and the game theory involved? How does that start to play out?
Well, this is precisely it, because countries like Iran, North Korea have been known to deal with Bitcoin, transacting Bitcoin, and the reason they can do it is because no one can stop them. This is the power of Bitcoin. I'm not sanctioning. I'm not saying giving credit to North Korea or Iran or saying that what they're doing is right, but in the end, they have the ability to do it because Bitcoin is truly decentralized. And that's why more and more countries, like today, all the countries are so-called in the US sphere of influence. The whole world, the United Nations, the World Bank, a lot of the global activities under the US-led sort of Western perspective. And that's why the US can sanction countries and individuals by sort of freezing their assets, their US dollar assets, and instructing banks all around the world to not do business with certain people. Because if the banks don't listen, don't obey, then the US can sort of cut off the bank from transacting in US dollars. So banks are very much afraid. That's why an international bank like HSBC, based in the UK, based in Hong Kong, they've been fined billions of dollars for doing bad things with money laundering and providing banking services to terrorists or whatever people. So, but with Bitcoin, what's amazing is that in the future, if people start using Bitcoin, they cannot be sanctioned, they cannot be frozen, their funds cannot be frozen. So this is that's why a lot of countries and governments don't like Bitcoin, because you don't have control over it. So I'm not saying that it's good for terrorists and criminals to do their activities. What I'm saying is people should have a choice. We should have a choice to utilize assets and currencies that are not controlled by the government, right? So that's the whole point. Bitcoin gives people a choice, and the market will decide whether that choice is worthy, whether that choice is valuable, whether people should continue to have that choice, or should that choice be extinguished from civilization. So we'll see.
Fantastic. Love it. All right. Well, let's go to a very quick break, Bobby, and then we'll come back and we'll finish off the podcast with the very famous crypto conversation hot take round.
In today's crypto market, the team at Brave New Coin are the sector's leading builders of custom crypto indices. BNC's powerful indexing engine draws on Brave New Coin's premium data to calculate high-frequency intraday and end-of-day indices for a wide range of index products. BNC's custom indices help you to gain exposure to the crypto assets class and track your performance against the market without having to become a stock picker. Not sure what you need? A Brave New Coin consultant can help you assess your requirements. Contact BNC today to find out more.
All right, we're back and I'm with Bobby Lee. So Bobby Lee, he has a really good new book out. I've read the book. It's fantastic. It's called The Promise of Bitcoin, The Future of Money and How It Can Work for You. So Bobby will give a final shout out on the book just after we finish off the show. But Bobby, I like to finish each podcast with a quick round of rapid fire crypto conversation hot takes. Are you up for it?
Sure, of course.
So I just want your kind of hot take answers. We'll run through these questions here. So I know the answer to the first one, I think. But Bobby, where do you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist minimalist to multi-coin opportunist spectrum?
So again, for the casual new person coming into crypto, I encourage them to just focus on Bitcoin. It's the blue chip of crypto. It's the safest choice. It may not have the wildest swings compared to other altcoins, but at the end of the day, it will outperform all your other existing asset classes in the real world, and Bitcoin will do just fine. In terms of all the other altcoins, the multi-coins, stuff like that, it's a gamble. It's just, my 10-year sort of experience in crypto is that you just don't know which ones will outperform Bitcoin. Some certainly will outperform Bitcoin over the last year. We've seen many of these coins rise up and sort of outperform Bitcoin on a 12-month or 24-month basis. But the reality is many others underperform Bitcoin. So it's really a gamble. So I encourage you to first invest in Bitcoin, get familiar with it, and then over time, if you gain the experience, then you can sort of divest out and start playing with these other coins.
Great advice, Bobby. I very much agree with that, but let's keep it moving. What would you say, Bobby, is your firmest conviction crypto opinion?
Well, my firm conviction is that Bitcoin is here to stay. Even though I've never met, the biggest criticism is Bitcoin has a lot of illicit uses. A lot of criminals use Bitcoin for transactions. I don't meet criminals. I've never met a criminal who's used Bitcoin, but I've heard these stories, ransomware and all that stuff. Now, regardless, that's the ugly side. That's a bad side of Bitcoin, meaning that people use Bitcoin for bad things. And by the way, that's true in all parts of life. People use US dollars for bad things. Criminals use diamonds and gold. They steal gold, they steal diamond, they steal jewelry, they steal fine art, they steal red wine. Criminals steal Bitcoin. Okay, so that's not a knock on Bitcoin. That's not a bad thing about Bitcoin itself, because if it were, then the world shouldn't have any diamonds or gold or jewelry or money, right? Because criminals steal those as well. So back to the point about Bitcoin, why it's here to stay. I've met enough people in the real world, businesses, individuals, who actually truly do use Bitcoin to send value from one location to the other, and it's tremendously valuable. It's very, very valuable as a concept, as a way to move money. So for that reason alone, Bitcoin is here to stay. And the other reason is Bitcoin allows you to move money through time. As we know, I don't want to get too science fiction here, but time is the fourth dimension. Why do humans save money? Why do we make investments? The reason is you want to pass the value today that's earned today down to the future, whether it's for my own retirement, whether it's 5 years out so I can take a bigger vacation. We invest money, we save money for the purpose of moving our value to a future time. And what's better than that than Bitcoin? Bitcoin is great because it's limited number. So whatever amount of Bitcoin you buy, whether it's 0.01 Bitcoin, it will always retain its own fractional amount compared to the whole Bitcoin, because there's not going to be more Bitcoins in existence. So for that reason, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, that same fraction amount of Bitcoin you have, I assure you it will have more value than the value today, or at least it will maintain the same value, same purchasing power. So that's my conviction.
Fantastic, Bobby. I love it. Well, look, Bill Gates famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. Anything you like here? What does it look like in 10 years' time? Blockchain, the industry, Bitcoin?
I think in 10 years' time, crypto will be very well positioned. Not only companies like Microsoft, Apple, the largest companies will have Bitcoin in their treasury. I predict that. And also countries will be investing in Bitcoin. So I think Bitcoin will most likely have, in 10 years time, be worth over $100 trillion US. Okay, $100 trillion. So that's, that would put Bitcoin, over many millions of dollars per Bitcoin. Today it's already 50,000. So technically that would be $5 million per Bitcoin. I expect that, if not 10 years, it'll certainly get there in 20 years. And, if I'm off by 10 years, I wouldn't be too worried about that, right? If it takes Bitcoin, 20 years to get to $5 million, I'm not worried about that.
Well, there you go, folks. All you need to do is have a long enough time horizon. I think that's exactly right.
Yes.
All right. Well, speaking of sci-fi, we do enjoy a bit of sci-fi here on the Crypto Conversation, Bobby. So you'll have heard this quote from famous sci-fi author William Gibson, who said that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. Can you think of an example of the future being here right now, but most people just aren't really aware of it?
Well, that's so in the context of Bitcoin cryptocurrency, this is it, right? The future is here. For those of us in the crypto industry, including yourself and all these crypto related podcasts, we have been playing with Bitcoin and dealing with it for the last 10, 12 years. Even some of us who just got in the last 1 or 2 years, it's amazing, right? And today, I think only maybe at most 100 million people know about crypto that actually actively use crypto, at most 100. In the book, I said like 50 million. So if you look at the rest of the world, there's another 99% out there who have no idea what we're talking about, who have no idea what we're doing. They think this is a Ponzi scheme. They think this is a flash in the pan, right? These are the same people who thought the internet was nothing. In the mid 90s, I remember getting into the internet field, and I saw enough of the internet to know that it was here to stay, yet many people didn't believe us. So in any case, I think history has proven that internet was considered the here to stay technology. And I think Bitcoin is at the same location. And this is why I wrote the book, The Promise of Bitcoin, to really enlighten the common folks, the everyday person, to let them know that Bitcoin is really here to stay.
Fantastic. All right, we're almost done here, Bobby, but it's time to get a little bit weird, time to zoom out. Still on the sci-fi tip, what do you see as the long-term future for the human race? Do you see dystopia or utopia?
Oh, this is a tough one. I think, so I've had the fortune to be living in China for the last 15 years. And of course, as an American, the Chinese system is very different, very foreign. The Chinese system is an authoritarian form of government where it's not elected by the people, but rather it's people who rise up in the party, in the Communist Party, and they have good intention to do good things, but in the end, it's a very fundamentally different system than the Western democracy. And even though I've been living there, culturally I'm Chinese and I'm an American, so that's why I enjoy my time in the U.S. as well. It's interesting to get a first row seat to see the development of China, what's going well there. But at the same time, it's frustrating because of some of the limitations. For example, the internet. The internet is very limited there. So I think we talk about the U.S.-China relations. I think I don't know what's going to happen in 5 years, 10 years on that front. It's going to be certainly one of the more important things for humans to settle, aside from the other important topics like climate change and all that. On that front, for example, I've been a big fan of Tesla electric cars. So I've been driving electric, and recently, in the parking lot, I saw this traditional gasoline car running and no one was in it. The car was turned on, it was just burning gas. And I was like complaining, like someone should just turn the car off, because the valet had it turned on, even though no one was gonna drive it, just burning gasoline and polluting the air, right? So anyway, so those I think are the biggest challenges for us in the coming 10 years. The notion of climate change, how to deal with that, and also the notion of the Western democracy versus a more authoritarian, sort of government. I think my vote is with in terms of democracy. However, I see some challenges in terms of opposition for that.
Yeah, great answer, Bobby. Fascinating indeed. And look, I mean, speaking of Tesla, I think, didn't you famously give away, or you said you give away a Cybertron? Yeah. What's the update there?
So I haven't given away yet, because the Tesla Cybertruck has not launched yet.
Correct.
So last summer, in June of 2020, I predicted that Bitcoin price will exceed the price of a Tesla Cybertruck. Yes. So the base model was $39,900, and I said, if Bitcoin price exceeds the price of Tesla Cybertruck before the end of 2021, which is, by the way, when Tesla Cybertruck was supposed to be released, I would give away a free Cybertruck. And sure enough, within 1 week of this year of 2021, Bitcoin shoots past $39,900, and my promise is going to take shape. So I've committed to doing that. It's open to all US residents. All you have to do is follow me on Twitter, be one of my followers, and also retweet one of my Tesla Cybertruck giveaways, and you'll be entered. And at the end of this year, in December of this year, in about 8 months, I will be selecting a winner, a random person from my Twitter followers, to win a Cybertruck in the United States. And hopefully, depending on the situation of the pandemic, I can personally deliver the Cybertruck to the winner. So it'll be very exciting. I might even upgrade the award. So if Bitcoin, if Bitcoin shoots past $70,000, I will upgrade the Cybertruck award to a higher tier model instead of the base model.
That is fantastic. And, so we'll put a link to Bobby's Twitter in the show notes. But yeah, if I was a US citizen, I would be all over that.
Yeah,
I can tell you
have to be living in the US. You don't have to be a citizen. You have to be resident in the United States. And that's where the Cybertruck is released.
I can tell you're a big Tesla guy. Elon Musk fan, presumably, Bobby?
Yes, indeed.
Fantastic. All right. So the final question here in the Crypto Conversation Hot Take around Bobby, you may or may not be surprised that it relates back to science fiction, and it is. Finally, Bobby Lee, what is your favorite science fiction book, film, show, or universe?
Let's see, science fiction. So I like the Star Wars stuff.
Yes.
I'm trying to think, what else do I like? I like a lot of sci-fi. I've been watching some sci-fi, movies on Netflix. Some are not as good as others, but I always enjoy watching them. So I'm following SpaceX closely. I'm also following closely Elon Musk's vision for going to Mars. I think that's very exciting. In fact, they're going to go to the moon first, right? So in a few years, NASA has a planned trip using SpaceX rockets to put humans back on the moon. So that's very exciting. In terms of Star Wars, I like Star Trek. I like all sorts of sci-fi, like The Matrix. I really enjoyed that movie. Yeah, The Matrix, first Matrix is... The first Matrix, yes. Is a brilliant piece of sci-fi. And hey, just speaking of Elon, trying to go to the moon with NASA, did you see that Jeff Bezos over at Amazon and, what does he call his one? Blue Origins, yeah. Yeah, because they filed some kind of court case against that whole process. So I think that's, it's a bit of a messy legal situation, but those things are not new to Elon, so I'm sure it'll work itself out. Let's finish this off, Bobby. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and nothing else to say really except hand the microphone back to you, and please give a shout out for your book and any of your crypto companies, and tell people where they should go to learn more about the book, do a pre-order, follow you on Twitter, all that good stuff. Yeah, so my Twitter account is Bobby C. Lee. So BOBBYCLEE, so at Bobby C. Lee. Follow me on Twitter. You'll find the posts about the Tesla Cybertruck giveaway. My personal blog is bobbylee.com. So you can go there and pre-order the book. The book is being published on May 18th. It'll be available at all booksellers, including Amazon. There's a Kindle edition available for that as well, which is going to simultaneously launch on May 18th. And I have good news. It's going to be, the book's going to be also available on audiobook format later this summer. And I just heard today that we have publishers going to translate it into Korean language and also Portuguese. So I think hopefully if more countries and regions are interested, this book might get translated into more languages. But the US version, English version, is going to be available on May 18th and on Amazon and all booksellers worldwide. Awesome. Hey, thank you very much for coming on the show, Bobby. Very much enjoyed. Okay, good. Hope everyone gets to read The Promise of Bitcoin and give me some feedback. Awesome. All right. Thank you, Bobby, and bye for now. Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, folks, that was the show today. How good was Bobby? I really enjoyed talking to Bobby. First time had Bobby on the show. Really, really interesting character. Good stories, obviously. And
I can honestly say that I do recommend his book. So he kindly shared an advance copy with me, as I say, and I read it earlier this week. I mean, I sped read it, I must admit, but yeah, very much enjoyed it. And he's got some great stories from, kind of the early days of Bitcoin and what he really thinks about the philosophy of money and lots of stuff that we really didn't quite have time to get into today. So as I say, the book is called The Promise of Bitcoin, The Future of Money and How It Can Work for You. And links are in the show notes. Hopefully, depending on what platform you are using. And look, if you're on YouTube, we're on video, not usually on video here at the Crypto Conversation, but I may start doing a few more Zoom calls where we have the video on, like Bobby and I did today, which was very much unplanned. So anyway, if you like watching it on video, let me know, because that would give me more reason to do so. But if you have any feedback at all, as always, please just do drop me an email, Andy@bravenewcoin.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the Crypto Conversation here on YouTube or in whatever podcast app you are using. Yes. All right. Thanks for listening, team. This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave a New Coin. See ya.